All right, we heard from Francis Ngannou. Francis did a piece, and he gave us an update on the injury. He said it was ACL and MCL, which Dr. Abbasi has covered and might have to get more specific. But guys, you're looking at about a year. All right, I'm not a doctor, but I love to play one on TV type thing. I just know guys that have been through this process. You can really speed those up. I know guys that have done ACLs and they've been back in 8 months. I don't know a story better than that. I could give you a small handful of guys who have tried to come back in 5 months, and they all talk the same way, and it was miraculous, and they did their surgery, and they got this bionic leg, and then they end up they tear it again, and they're out for 3 years. So I'm just, on a personal standpoint, who's grown up in this sport, it's about a year. That's about a year to competition. You could get back in the room, everything goes smoothly in that 8 to 8.5 months. 9 months, full speed, ready to go within a year, which is too quick of a turnaround, and nobody can get in shape by then. They all get their ass kicked, but that's a whole nother story. Francis is out for a period of time. Only point I'm trying to make. Francis is owed by us nothing more than get well champ. Very important that we do that. Francis owes himself. Now, Francis spoke about his own career, and he said this is going to be a number of months. He even put him out there. He might have said 12 months, 14 months. I think he said maybe they could rush me back. I don't know who the they is, and that made me very curious. He's talking about his team, his trainers. He's talking about the UFC. I didn't know who he was talking about. But these were the words that he used, and then he said, except for Tyson Fury, I will fight him anywhere. I'll fight him right now. I will fight him in a phone booth. Again, I'm quoting. So Francis has been very clear with us what his intentions are. Now, he qualified that yet one more time. And he said, I'm just at a point that I want to do what I want to do. That's very consistent with what Francis has been telling us. This whole time, it has been very hard to be upset with Francis because he's been very calm. He's been polite. He's been a gentleman. And he's also been consistent. Guys, we've been annoyed a number of times when a similar thing like this happens. Somebody that we want to see fight, for whatever reason, you fill in the blank, doesn't go out there and fight. We've been very annoyed. But then that person very quickly has the same story, which is, well, Dana knows my number, right? It ends up being a negotiation. It ends up getting really weird. And a lot of times, you don't ever see that guy fight again. Because Dana's going, yes, I do happen to know what your number is, because we've got it written down in something called a contract, and we're going to go by that. It's one of these things, but Francis just isn't doing that game. He's staying very calm. There's no part of me that thinks Francis is bluffing. And the art of war is if you are bluffing, you get caught somewhere. You show your own hand at some point. Otherwise, there's nothing left to talk. You have to show the other side something. Francis is very consistent. I trust him. I do stick with get well champ, but let's take a look. When you talk about you owe Francis or Francis owes Francis, what can he do? I am not as good as you guys give me credit for predicting what should be done. What I am great at is being a historian of the sport who can give you examples and tell you what worked out positively for this person, or the same thing that went a different route that worked out negatively for that person. I'm great at that. This has been tested one and one time only, where a sitting champion handed the belt back. And it wasn't about negotiations. It was not about you know my number, which doesn't mean the 10 digits you hit on your iPhone to reach me. How much you got to pay me. That's been tested many times. We've lost champions over that way back. Turn of the century, there's even been court cases with UFC champions. One time that a champion gave the belt back and he wasn't bluffing, he wasn't coming back, and he just said, get on with it, boys, was George St. Pierre. Now, that was a very selfless act. And we have no evidence to this day. Was that 2017? So here we are 5 years later. We have no evidence that it was meant to be self-serving. But if it was self-serving, George has every right to. He's a champion of the world. He's about to walk away from it. He has a right to do that. We just don't have evidence of that. He has not come back and tried to get more elsewhere and used his good deed as a spirit of goodwill to get himself more commas than zeros. He didn't do it for anything. Now, it is very relevant because when it happened, there was people that were upset with George, but not the locker room. The boys all looked at George for what he was the whole time he was fighting and after, which was a leader. George knew, I am not going to come back to this sport at 185 pounds, but I know there's a whole roster full of people that would like an opportunity to have this. I'm not going to hold you up. And George could have milked that belt, not to mention he had two of them. He never lost the 170-pound belt, so if he wanted to come out and start doing interviews, beautiful suit on, nice little smile, and a belt over each shoulder, nobody would have teased him. In fact, there's a lot of sponsors that would have taken that photo and put it on billboards all over the country. That's both belts if he wanted to. He was the city middleweight champion. He could have milked that for 1 year. He'd have had to play it just right. I'm getting ready to come back. That'd have bought himself 3 or 4 months after the victory party that would have bought him an initial 90 days. And then, of course, he's going to have to come up with the mysterious injury. And then he's going to have to come back with the story, I'm back to training. And then he's going to have to find an opponent. And then, and just then, if he doesn't get on with it, people are going to realize the gag. They're going to take the belt off the sumbitch. But he would have made millions of dollars in sponsors. Took him a total of 8 days. 8 days is just enough time to get back home, have a conversation or two with your team, pick up a phone, and give the belt back. It's a very big deal. And I'm only reminding you of this story because Francis is being extremely consistent, and he is not showing any bluffs. He is not showing any cracks, at least not publicly. What if Francis was to give the belt back? They're going to take it off of it. They have no choice. We take everybody in this sport at their word. Daniel Cormier was about to get stripped. Daniel Cormier, let's rework this. How did this go? He was the light heavyweight champion who was going to move into heavyweight, but they weren't going to make it a champ-champ opportunity. They were going to make him relinquish the 205-pound title. They were going to do this on ESPN, and the only reason I know this story is I worked with Ariel Helwani, who I was sitting with when Daniel either texted or called Ariel, and this was important to Dana. Dana ended up laughing at Daniel, quite frankly, but it was important to Daniel. And Daniel said, Ariel, I want this known. I have not been stripped. They're scheduled to strip me here in about 15 minutes. I'm relinquishing. It was a big deal. And they asked Dana about it, and Dana literally laughed. He goes, yeah, whatever. He gave it back. Okay, anyway, and he just moved on with it. It was one of these things, but within Daniel, who has the right, Daniel earned that. I, to this day, side with Dana. I think it's funny. I don't fully understand the whole thing, but I also wasn't a champion of the world that was about to have it taken off of me. So I respect him. Whatever that was within Daniel, he did not want stripped. He did not want anybody to do that to him. He didn't want anybody to decide his fate. He gave the belt back, and that is the official story. And if you read it differently, you were reading it wrong. If you ever read that Daniel Cormier was stripped of his light heavyweight belt, you were wrong. And the only difference here is a statement and who goes first. And I can attest, and Ariel will back me up on this, Daniel went first. Daniel gave it back. Now, even if that is laughable, that is the way that happened. So let's look at Francis's spot. He doesn't have a ton of options. You cannot not fight in the UFC and be the UFC champion. Do we all understand that? Yeah, okay, sure we do. Can you not fight because you're hurt and remain champion? Yeah, I think so. I do think that you can. If you say you're not returning to fighting, but you sit on the belt until somebody else makes the decision, we've seen that tested a number of times. Doesn't work out. Doesn't work out. It's a club. It's the club's belt. Do whatever you want with the belt. Do the Montreal screw job if you want. It's your belt. Do what you want with the damn thing. What if Francis gave it back? I'm asking. I'm not suggesting he do that. I'm not ready yet. I want a dialogue. I want a back and forth. He's only got so many options. Does he sit on that belt and wait for the unknown to happen, or does he relinquish it? Does he wait, which he has the right? Not being able to fight medically is a completely different scenario. Now, just because that's being done in conjunction with a statement of I'm not going to fight. Remember, all Henry Cejudo said is I'm not fighting again. He said that into a microphone one time. Dana did not even speak to him. Dana said into another microphone the response to Henry, which is, I'm going to be on the road for 8 days, and when I return, I'm going to a matchmaker meeting, and I'm going to make a match for that belt. If he changes his mind, he will be 50% of that match. If he doesn't, I'm going to bring in 2 new participants, and we're going to get on with it. Okay, that's exactly what happened. Both guys told the truth. Both guys did exactly what they said. So it does matter. It does matter who says what. We will listen to a person in this sport. Francis has not said, I'm giving the belt back. So how much time do you give a guy who happens to be injured? In conjunction with him saying he's not coming back. Right? If it's all the same thing, be the George St. Pierre and give the damn thing back. It's an option. It's not for sure the right one. But I'm not proclaiming that he gets any more bounce or any more bump for that. If he does it the way Daniel did and he has to do it just in the nick of time because he finds out somebody's about to come and make a statement, he sends a text message to the biggest media outlet we have, who happened to be Ariel Helwani. It's a technicality, but he gave it back. I would make more pomp and circumstance. I would do it much more of the George St. Pierre. I would call for a press conference. I would state my intentions. I would make them very clear. Tyson Fury. Say, I don't give a goddamn who the promoter is, including the UFC. I don't care who puts this thing on. It's going to be me and Fury. The next belt that I fight for is going to be that one, and I throw the damn thing off the table. Doesn't mean Francis has to do it that way. But he has to do something to get some bang for his buck. And it does matter to the champions. I'm guessing. I was with Dana. I laughed when Daniel did that. But I also wasn't the champion that was about to have something I worked hard for and earned taken from me. And I wanted, for whatever reason, to make sure that it was my idea as opposed to... I wasn't in Daniel's spot. I'm not in Francis's spot. I'm just a guy that sits back and then attempts to digest what Francis said and interpret it my own way and make sure that you guys hear the message. What should Francis do? There's only so many options. And I feel like the last time or the last few times that I've asked you guys, what should Francis do? You continue to respond by telling me about his contract. He should negotiate his contract. And then you go in different directions, say every fighter should be able to do it. Slow down, guys. This isn't mythical. This isn't the game a genie pops out of a bottle and grants you 3 wishes. I'm not asking you. I'm asking you very realistically. He's got the belt. Does he want a press conference held where he no longer has the belt? Does he want to contest that in a court of law? Who's going to rule against him? We've seen these things tested. Let's not make something up. Let's take what's already, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at the options that have already happened and look at the best outcome for Francis, who Francis does have the right to serve. He has the right to serve himself. The third option is the St. Pierre approach. If they're going to take it, why not give it to him like Daniel did? If you are going to do that, if you like what Chael is saying, how do you do it? Do you get Ariel's number and you send him a text? I think you could get more bang for your buck. Daniel was under the gun on that. Do you wait till the big press conference comes out and it's Jon Jones and it's Stipe and it's the interim title? And just to stick it up their ass one last time, after they put out all the artwork in the print, then you give it back and make them change everything to it's undisputed to feel like you've got some victory. I mean, right, Daniel felt like he got some victory. There's something internal there. What does Francis do? If he's not going to defend it, which is what he says, does he sit on it as long as he can, which is a period of time because of the injury he's got, or does he give it back like George did?